It took a few games, maybe a few games longer than we thought, but Steph finally broke the three-point record last night, hitting 5 threes in the win over the Knicks. He moves past the Hall of Famer Ray Allen's decade-long record, and he made it on his second three. And he broke the story at the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. And the Garden, when you start to think about all the great memories, Reggie Miller had 8 points in 9 seconds. Reggie on the call last night with TNT. Kobe goes for 61. That was back in 2009. Michael Jordan's famous double nickel game. Willis Reed playing hurt against the Lakers in the NBA Finals. The NBA greats have all had moments at Madison Square Garden. Usually it's the opposition having great moments at the Garden. Last night's performance gives Steph Curry 2 great moments there. I go back to that 2013 game, and really it was an NBA coming out party for him. He had 54 against the Knicks. 8 years later, that little kid from Davidson was back, and this time it wasn't to announce his arrival to the NBA. It was to cement his status as the greatest shooter of all time. Here's Steph Curry after the game.
I think everybody talks about what the greatest shooter ever and all that conversation, and my respect for Reggie and Ray, guys who set the bar for what it meant to be a sharpshooter, to have the longevity as well. And for me, I've tried to own that in my journey in terms of range, volume, efficiency, all those things go into it. So I pride myself on shooting a high percentage. I pride myself on allowing that to help us win games. And now I can pride myself on the longevity of getting to that number that Ray set and hopefully pushing it to a number that nobody can reach. We'll see what happens, but that's something that the balance of volume and efficiency for me is the standard that I wanted to set. I never want to call myself the greatest shooter until I got this record, so I'm comfortable saying that now.
And he can say it, and there are very few who can argue. Now, you're going to get people who nitpick, as he really hit a big shot in a big moment. All right. If that's your argument, run with it. I don't know how far you're going to run with it, but go ahead, run with it. When you talk about creativity, when you talk about imagination, when you talk about an ability to extend the game, change the game, he can go in, he can go out. He can hit mid-range, he can hit deep threes. He can get to the hoop. These are all the things, if you look at the draft profile, that people cautioned other NBA teams about if you're going to draft Steph Curry. And he's not going to be quick enough, defensive liability, probably going to be a role player, maybe a shooter like his current coach, Steve Kerr, but he made himself better. And I think that's the message that should really be realized today is Steph had ankle injury. They weren't sure if he was going to have an NBA career because of his ankle injury. And if you think about it, how many great players, Hall of Fame players, didn't become an all-star until their 5th season in the NBA? And I remember when Steph was coming out, and we had him on his last 2 years at Davidson. We would have him on a couple of times, usually during the tournament, because that's when people would go, oh, that's right, that little kid at Davidson, man, he's fun. And it seemed like it was a cute story. Steph was a cute story. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves had 2 first-round draft picks. Well, of course, they're going to take Steph Curry, right? No, they're going to take Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio. And then Steph Curry drops right into the laps of the Golden State Warriors, right before the New York Knicks. So Steph is approaching 3,000 made threes. And you start to do the math here and you go, okay, what's he going to end up with and who can catch him? Well, there's nobody in the NBA right now who's going to catch him. Nobody's going to catch him. Because he's going to probably put up between 4,200 and 4,500 made threes when it's all said and done. Now, he's turning 34 later this year. Let's say he makes 300 per season. Now, he averages around 330, but he's not going to get that number. But let's say 300. Let's just be generous, but not to the point of over-generous. 300 made threes. So I got him up to 42, maybe 4,500 made threes. Okay. James Harden's not going to catch him. Now you can say, well, Trae Young. Well, Trae Young doesn't put up the numbers, doesn't have the made threes that Steph Curry does. He's a good shooter. But I wonder if anybody's going to approach this. Whoever's approaching this is probably in grade school right now. But I don't know what the game will be in 10 to 15 years. Are we going to have 50 three-point attempts per game? Because if you look at this seismic shift of maybe you'd have 3 or 4 attempts, and then maybe you'd have 5 or 6. And I'm talking about teams. And now it's commonplace. You put up 30. And I wonder if somebody's going to be able to approach this record. Now, do I think it's one of those monumental records? I don't. I know Steph was emotional about it. It was at the Garden. Ray Allen was there. Reggie Miller was there. His parents were there. And, he probably got caught up in that moment of, I've been thinking about this. I'm reminded about this. I struggled against Philadelphia. I didn't do it against Indiana. I'm going to do it at the Garden. And then I think the emotion hit him. By the way, the buzz in the Garden quickly went down after that. It's like, no, Steph, you got to stretch this out. He needed to make 5 threes. Then we would have had some drama. By the way, the over-under made threes, 5.5. He ended with 5.
Oh.
Yes.
Called that.
Thank you, Todd. Well done.
Very rare. Got that right on the nose there. You teased me about it. Of course, you got to put it right by the half. Felt good about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to take a victory lap?
I rarely get a chance to toot the horn, so beep, beep. I don't know. I'm not going to actually run because, then I'm going to get out of breath real fast and make those weird wheezing noises I've been making on the air.
All right. Best and worst of the weekend. Todd, start with you.
Best the way the Broncos.
Just want to bring you back to
All
earth
right,
with
I'm
your...
going for a physical tomorrow. We'll see what it's all about if he wants to send me for tests.
You're known as the Big Gulp. That's what that
The Big
was.
Gulp.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's your new nickname, the Big Gulp.
7-Up sponsorship. 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Mountain Dew. Are you going to lie to your doctor?
I will probably say if he goes like, "How often are you working out?" or whatever. I may.
No. He knows
about
that
my
you're
diet
not. He can look at you and know that you're not working out.
I'd say like 3 days a week instead of 1 day a week. But as far as diet, it depends. I'll let him lead me. I don't have to give more information than I need to.
Why don't you tell him about this one breath thing that you do?
I should.
Just to make sure that there's nothing else going
I
on.
also think I have like neuropathy of the bottom of my feet. Not that you asked. It's like I feel like I'm walking on sand lately. I'm a little concerned about that. And I was Googling that late last night, and it might be something called neuropathy.
Yeah.
And my toes and the bottoms of my feet feel tight.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you, Todd.
I ran all the lab work and everything, so we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here is the call last night on Steph Curry breaking the all-time record.
Wiggins comes across, working on Fournier. Up top to Curry. Quick release and splash! There it is! The best shooter the game has ever seen has cemented his legacy. No one has made more threes than Stephen Curry. And when you consider he has many more years in his career, he might be setting a record that may never be broken.
Yeah, let's say he plays at a high level for 4 more years. He's 38, maybe 39. Now, he could morph into sort of what Ray Allen became, and that's just, a specialized shooter. Because when Ray first started out, when he was with Seattle and Milwaukee, he was dunking on people. He was really athletic. And then he just kind of became the designated shooter. And maybe Steph does that. Maybe he does that for another team later in his career. But, I ruffled a few feathers, I think, when I said I would look at Klay Thompson as a better shooter. Just stand and go around and shoot at different places. But it's the creativity, the imagination of getting his shot that makes Steph Curry, to me, the greatest shooter of all time. But if you said we're just going to stand and shoot, Klay Thompson, to me, would go toe-to-toe with Steph Curry. There's a lot of guys that would go toe-to-toe with Steph Curry. There's been a lot of great shooters. And Steph is wonderful, but it's his imagination that makes him so much better than everybody else. You have to find these spots, these nooks, these crannies, off balance. He practices the shots he takes in the game. And that's another message that should be sent, or at least heard. Don't just stand there and shoot shots. Steph Curry knows he's going to be off balance going left, off balance going right, a runner here, left-handed here. He practices those shots. So it's not like you go, oh, wow, man, that situation came up and he wasn't ready for it. It feels like he is ready for those moments. But this ability to get his shot off and being 6'2", 6'3" at the most, and when he came out of Davidson, he was labeled as not having a good first step. They questioned his handle. He was a shooter and then stayed one more year at Davidson to become a point guard. But if you look at him, it looks like, bring your son to school day every time you saw Steph play at Davidson. The jersey was kind of hanging off of him. I don't know if he has shaved yet, but he had that ability to be able to see something. And I think it's lost on people that, they're just certain brilliant basketball minds. And Steph was labeled somebody who had a really high IQ, basketball IQ. That ability to see something. Gretzky had it in hockey. Magic had it. It's, I see something before you see it. And that's the genius behind all of that. Tiger would take shots and you go, what? I remember Pete Sampras telling me that Roger Federer was attempting shots that Pete didn't even think of taking. So it's that creativity, that genius that you have. And that's what I always marvel with Steph, is when you watch him play, that there is this innate ability that he just sees something before it happens. And very few are able to do something like that. All right, what's the poll question? I did think this last night. Has Steph Curry been good for the game of basketball?
Oh, that's double deep level.
How about that?
Whoa.
Yeah, I did think that. And I don't think he has been.
What?
I think he has been, for him, the singular aspect of what Steph does has been spectacular. But not everybody does what Steph Curry does. There are a lot of people shooting threes who have no business shooting threes. And you know what? You're the last one to know you shouldn't be shooting threes. Everybody's like, I can get hot. I can get on a roll here. And then if you watch grade school now, junior high, high school, has Steph been good for the game of basketball? I think there's probably an over-influence by Steph Curry because everybody thinks they can shoot. And you don't have to be 6'5". You don't have to be able to dunk from the foul line. All you got to do is you got to handle. Can you get the ball up in time, quick enough? Go ahead, take some threes. Yeah, Paulie.
Steph Curry should tape a PSA. Hi, I'm Steph Curry, and you shouldn't be shooting like me. And you send it to kids who are not that great.
This program brought to you by Impeller. Empower your investment portfolio with opportunities in Puerto Rico. Impeller, a new online tool that connects investors with innovative projects on the island. Available now. Impeller is your hub for investment opportunities in Puerto Rico. Learn more at investpr.org/impeller. I can just see the headlines now. Dan Patrick says Steph Curry bad for basketball. Dan Patrick says Klay Thompson better shooter than Steph Curry. We know what I just said. And if you put it in context, I think Klay Thompson is one of the great, one of those, no dribble, just stand shoot that I've ever seen. But he doesn't have the creativity to be able to get those shots off. He needs help. And that's what makes Steph, to me, the greatest shooter of all time. Yes, Eden.
I'm pretty sure you just said Steph is destroying the game. It's a hot take for today.
Yeah.
Today. It's a bold take. But that's kind of how I interpret it here.
Well, then that's what I said.
Steph Curry's ruining basketball.
There are times when I watch games and I go, damn you, Steph Curry. It's not his fault. It's everybody who thinks they're Steph Curry. Yes, Tom.
Why can't both be true? He's the greatest shooter of all time, and he's destroyed the NBA.
It
Could be both things.
It is. By the way, if you look at the first 3 NBA seasons, Steph Curry made 372 three-pointers. Trae Young made 497. Now, it should be factored in that I think one season Steph played less than 10 games. He had the ankle injury, and they thought that this was going to be something that was going to cut into his longevity or that chance. So his third season, there was real doubt. Are you going to extend him? And he started like 23 games. There was a real concern.